right. Having reached the hour 3 o'clock, I'll call the Wednesday, October 1st, 2025 Stancog Management Finance Committee to order and ask for a roll call.
City of Ceres,
Here.
City of Houston, City of Modesto,
Here.
City of Newman, City of Oakdale, City of Patterson, City of Riverbank,
Here.
City of Turlock, City of Waterford,
Here.
and Stanislaus County.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 3. Are there any public comments? Seeing nobody in the public, I'll go on to agenda item 4, consent calendar. 4A, motion to approve the Management and Finance Committee minutes of September 3rd, 2025. Any comments? Anybody in the public? I'll entertain a motion.
Sears will make a motion.
Stanislaus County second.
A motion by Series and a second by Stanislaus County. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving on to 5A, Measure L Ad Hoc Committee update.
That's Franklin Wong, and he is coming in shortly. Sorry about that. Firstly,
No worries. We will table that for now. We'll go on to 6A, Measure L funds received. Jean?
okay, that's me. Next slide, please. I took the liberty of making copies of that table because it's so, I know it's difficult to read, so if we can hand these out.
That's right. Yeah, they got new hardware, you know, so one listen, the table. No, it's like carve out. Huh? That one's-
Right. Okay, so this item is one of the items that, or the table I just passed out is one of the things that the management and finance has asked us to do, the expenditure versus revenue report. I want to say, and Franklin will talk about this a little bit more when it's his turn, but we had I felt a really good meeting yesterday with the ad hoc committee. And I personally learned a lot from them. And so after having that meeting with that group, I feel that it's best to for us to go back, and because you can see at the bottom of the table where it says month in August 2025, we show you the grant writing of expenditure of 150,000. We haven't spent any money there, but for the outreach and education for the convey, we spent $6,100. And I believe now that what the Management and Finance Committee would want, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm here to get your input, is a more detailed write-up on the outreach and education campaign and what Convey has put forward, almost towards what you would see in an invoice. So I apologize for not getting that in today, but we could bring it back next time, depending on what you have to say, what you want to see in the, especially in the expenditures. The revenues, I think, is fairly simple, but in the expenditures. So I'm here to hear comments or suggestions on how management and finance would like that to look.
Any comments from the committee?
I think yesterday during the ad hoc committee discussion that we had, that was one of the items that we shared, is the detail specifically regarding Convey because of all of the work that they've supposedly done to date at almost $133,000, and yet still an additional $111,000. And the work product that we've seen here at the Management and Finance Committee has simply been the website.
Correct.
So that was one of the requests that the ad hoc committee did ask.
Yeah. And so I heard that, and I want to honor that. So this was already prepared and I didn't have time to change it today, but what I'd like to do is go back and change it based on what I heard from the ad hoc committee yesterday and any other additional information or comments that I hear from the Management and Finance Committee today.
Any other comments from the committee? Nope, seeing none. I'm assuming, well, at this point, we're letting the ad hoc committee do their work, right? And then we'll come back and report back on this in later months.
Yes.
Great. Any other comments? Anybody in the public want to comment on this item? All right, this is just informational.
Hmm.
All right, no action needed. Let's go back to 5A, Measure L Ad Hoc Committee update.
Good afternoon, committee members. So I will try to be brief as well, given that it's only a report. Based on the ad hoc committee meeting that we had, met yesterday afternoon for 1 hour with 5 ad hoc committee members from 4 jurisdictions. And there basically is a presentation of the 2 funding options for the Measure L public outreach and education campaign. I'll go by the campaign so that we don't need to repeatedly hear that term again and again. So there was a presentation that between Jean and myself that we clarified that no Measure L funds were earmarked before August 2024. And since then, for the 12-month period until this past July, about $610,796 was earmarked for the campaign, in which only $218,795 was expended for the 2 efforts launched to help the campaign, namely website development and grant writing. So as a result, $392,001 can be carried over to the current fiscal year to continue these and other possible activities to further this campaign. Now, the estimated expenses for the 2 efforts that I mentioned a second ago can be covered by the carryover balance. So that's why we try to put forward, 2 options for the policy board to consider. Both of them will pause the 1% earmark. The difference between the 2 is that option 2 has a specific threshold. Once the carryover balance reach below $100,000, the earmark will restart, but at a lower percentage, 0.5%. The other one does not specify a dollar value, but basically the goal is to ensure that these 2 and other possible efforts can continue without interruption. Basically, Stanco administration will go back to the policy board and ask for possible, relaunch of the earmark. And Jean and I received a lot of great questions and comments, and one of which that actually received agreement from multiple ad hoc committee members is to put forward an estimated expenditures for the next fiscal year, and then with the policy board consent, we will earmark the Measure L funds at 1% monthly until the earmarked dollar amount is reached. Then we pause for the earmark for the remainder of the fiscal year. So that concludes my report. Thank you, committee.
Are there any questions? Committee? I'm sorry, I got to take a little bit of, I need clarity. You said no earmark money prior to August of 2024. There's an agenda item, April of 2024, that amends the 23-24 budget, and as well as and then a later item that adopts 24-25. So I'm taking umbrage that the money wasn't earmarked because that work plan was amended in April.
Well, I wish I have the rear view mirror to go back because I did not work
I understand.
at Stancock at that time.
I- Don't worry, I know you just started, so you're catching up to date. We keep hearing that at this committee, and that's just not an accurate statement. The work plan for 23-24 was amended to include this 1%. And we still, to this day, don't have clarity.
If I may add, April 2024 was very late in the fiscal year already. So I have a hunch, it's just my personal hunch, that activities may take time to catch up. So, but my understanding based on the financial records, the first earmark, again, is earmark, not allocate, not other words, earmark, so that we have the monies earmarked for possible expenditures since August 2024.
But the budget was amended. So whether or not there was a journal, just come back to questioning. Where are the journals that show whether or not that money was moved or not? And because the agenda item clearly allocates the money. And so I would just like clarity on that at some point.
I cannot pretend that I was the financial services manager at the time. I'm sorry for repeating this sentence, but if I may add, a budget is like a guidebook for an organization, including public jurisdictions, to conduct the financial and other businesses for the duration of the fiscal year. There's a budget, there are actuals, and there are variances.
Perhaps what we can do is, I'm hearing what the chair is saying. Perhaps we can go back and bring an item forth next month to do a better job of detailing, getting to, I think, the heart of your question. When we did go over this yesterday with the subcommittee, they seemed to grasp what Franklin is saying, but they didn't bring up the money that was allocated in the OWP.
Okay, no problem. Any, and that's fine. I mean, I'm just looking for clarity on the situation because
And I think we greatly appreciate it. And as Jean said, we'll go back and look at the records and try to ensure that, we will be able to clarify what happened back then.
okay, it's the April 17th, 2024 meeting. The minutes also show clarity that it was approved by the policy board on that day. Any other comments or questions?
So I wasn't at the ad hoc, but this is showing all actuals. Would it be helpful to show the budget versus the actual for those years? And maybe that would provide clarity if that's possible for staff to do? Okay. And just one question on this handout. At the bottom, it's talking about the summary type and it's just for fiscal year 25-26, yet the revenue and expenses up above are for 24-25 and then showing the carry forward. Would it be possible to have that summary for the entirety of 24-25 and 25-26? Because of the 218, almost 219,000 in expenditures, we're only seeing where the well, I can't tell if this is the actual. So was there 150 in grant writing and then 132 in the outreach and education in the 24-25 year? Is that?
If I may, Jean, committee member, those two numbers that you see on the handout, those are estimated expenditures for the two activities that are supporting the campaign, namely the website development and grant writing. So those are just estimated or anticipated expenditures for fiscal year 25 to 26.
Okay, so then on the 218, the 218,795 that was in 24-25,
Those are actuals.
is it possible to get those actuals broken down between grant writing and outreach and education?
We can do that.
Okay. I think that would be helpful too. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments or questions? All right, thank you for your report. We'll go
Thank
back
you.
to agenda item 6B, program delivery status report.
I'm waiting for my slide. I'm Jose Luis Casares. I'm your Director of Program and Program Delivery. Next. So this might be the first time the Management and Finance Committee has received oral presentation from me on this. I'm not sure if the MFC has received verbal presentations on our program delivery status report before I was here, but it's the end of a fiscal year and I thought this would be a good time to share. Next slide. I was hoping this would be a little easier to read for folks, but I'm going to just kind of hit the highlights. At the very bottom, we delivered 71% obligated. That means encumbered. Our projects got permission to start federally reimbursable work, or in some cases, state reimbursable work during this last federal fiscal year that just ended yesterday. Some jurisdictions, well, we're going to come back to this slide in a little bit. Next slide. So here's a rundown by agency of generally how we did. And do you think we might be able to zoom in a little bit so I can see it myself? Yes. Yeah. So Ceres had a difficult year. In fact, actually, just zoom out a little bit so we can also see the comments on the right-hand side. There's an audit that is pending, and it's just wrapping up. And so these projects are going to be obligating in the next few months. Houston didn't have any projects. Modesto delivered 2 of its 3 projects with, I think, a third that's going to be wrapping up in the next month or 2. Newman, no projects. Oakdale delivered, I believe, all of its projects with a carbon reduction program project obligated just recently. Next slide. Thank you. Stanislaus County had a good year also. Their one project that didn't deliver is an active transportation program project. And really what they did is they went to the California Transportation Commission, received a time extension of 18 months so that they could redo the scope in order to add work that will improve that project. I feel like we didn't jump across any agencies. No? Okay, StanCog. We actually brought in a couple of extra projects this year that weren't part of the original program, and that's because we advanced the 4 million of Stannis Cruise for TDM and 800,000 for planning, programming, monitoring, so that we can get those obligated in advance of the decision that our board is scheduled to make on this funding program. Next slide. So those percentages and let's actually just go back a slide. Those percentages that we mentioned, sorry, let's go forward 2 slides. I want to go to here. 71% is an interesting way of kind of keeping score. Really what that means is of the projects that our agencies thought they could deliver this year, they were able to make good on 71% of the dollar amounts of those funds. And I just did a check back over time. Last year it was 81%. The year before that 80%, and the year before that 86%. But those are of expectations. So last year they obligated about this. Our agencies obligated about the same amount, 17 million. The year before that about 17 million, and the year before that 10 million. But in that year we hit an 86% target. So this is really more of how did we do compared to what we thought might come in, which for me is one way of doing a scoreboard. As your director of program and program delivery, I actually have a different philosophy for how to keep track of score in terms of are we reaching our targets? Next slide. Actually, previous slide. This one, yeah. So we actually have, so sorry, and I keep jumping around. Not this slide. Please advance again. And one more. Here we go. So what I think is the way we should be delivering projects in our region is we should be taking the funds that the taxpayers have provided to this region and we've set aside for projects, and we should be getting those onto projects every year, clearing the books. Yeah, it might be normal to have 1 or 2 million left over at the end of the year, but if we have money at the end of the year that we haven't spent on projects, to me, we're losing that money's value to inflation. We should be getting those funds on projects. And what this says is, as of September 10th, 2025, we're sitting on $23 million in combined congestion mitigation air quality funds and surface transportation block grant funds that also go as RSTP Regional Service Transportation Program funds. Then on top of that, we were actually able to loan out $8 million of our funds to another region, and it comes back to us like this next month. So really, we have $31 million that belongs to StanCog, our region, for delivering on projects. And that 31 million, if you look back over the last 4 years, it's kind of been sitting there every year. And that's because as a region, we had not programmed those dollars to projects. In other words, if all of our projects delivered right now, we'd still have about $30 million left over. So this next funding round, the one that we're in right now with the applications due this month, now October, it's going to program $96 million to transportation projects in our region, where traditionally we would have only programmed 30 million. We're only programmed, we've only got our commitments out through next year, 2026. Once that is approved by our board, we will know what we're building and constructing through 2030. And what I expect is we'll have projects every year that come into obligate, and some of them will fail to meet their targets. Usually it's about 30%. Where I came from in Sacramento, 30% of expectations just didn't get met. But we will have projects in the wings that will be able to come in and obligate and make up for delivery failures, such that my hope is that we will get to a point where we will have $0 left on the books, or we will become a region that will borrow from other regions, and we will use their money and beat the impacts of inflation to deliver projects today that otherwise would have had to wait 2 to 3 years. And next slide. Questions?
Any questions from the committee?
Just real quick questions. So on this, I don't know what you call it, attachment 1, each city or county, they have a description of the program, what they're using. But on StanCog, it just says planning, program, and monitoring for the our RAP and STIP and then STVG. What programs are those for specifically?
So that actually pays for staff costs. It's for planning. So we do a regional transportation plan. We participate in other planning activities. Planning is not my department. Programming is my department. So the programming it's paying for the work I'm doing today of helping our projects get delivered, selecting projects for funding, making sure we're being represented at the state level. And then monitoring it's also that. It's when we meet with you to discuss what's going on with projects and help solve transportation funding problems. And that dollar amount looks large, but that's, if you recall, that is our work through 2030. What we did is we went and encumbered all those dollars now so that there would be no risk of the federal government taking those. Not this year, but next year is a very high risk year for the federal government to take transportation funds if they're not used. Your staff, I'm over answering this a little bit. Your staff, we've actually been problem solving, coming up, scenario planning, coming up with worst case scenarios. This has happened in the past. The federal government gives states some arbitrary amount of time to spend all the money or they take it. And that's why we programmed out to 2030, and that's why we obligated through 2030. It's staff expenses.
And then also, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought our last meeting, we talked about major Ls and the going out and phasing and all that conversation.
Remind me a little bit more. We talked about Measure L going out and phasing.
Well, we talked about how much money was gonna be available through STIP and CMAG. And I thought it was 75 million we were talking about, because we were saying, well,
The funding program.
15 and all that. So, but now you're saying we're gonna be, or we now have 96 million to go out?
So the competitive funding program, which is not Measure L, it is congestion mitigation and air quality funding, service transportation block grant program funding. If you go to the April 2025 call for projects or the guidelines that are online, we have a fund estimate that identifies 90, maybe it's 95 million. I always say 96 million, but it's 95 or 96 million dollars total. But not all of that money is competitive. Some of that money was programmed off the top for planning, programming, and monitoring, Stannis Cruise, which is a form of transportation demand management, and StanRTA's transportation demand management program. And we actually, if you recall, we came to the MFC and asked for recommendation to pre-program those off the top funds, which we then went and pre-obligated so that we could reduce reduce our exposure to potential rescission. Now, those dollars, when you take them off the top, I think it leaves about 91 or 90.5 million available for the competitive funding program, which you recall has 4 silos: large and small CMAQ, large and small CPG. But I do not recall seeing a $75 million amount last meeting.
Yeah, because I thought that's what we were talking about, was that we were going out for competitive, and so the $21 million difference, where does that come in?
So I think I might be remembering the 75 amount, which is, that's the price tag for construction for Dakota to Gates, which is State Route 132. We received 67 million.
No.
Right?
it was-
No, that's
it
a
was the
77 million amount, sorry.
total cost that we're going to be trying to obligate with competitive bidding. And so I think the complaint, the concern was that Dancog was taking 15 million, which would leave like 60 million for everybody else.
Of 90, when you subtract 15, 90 minus 15 is 75. So that's where you got that. And then, sorry, since that meeting, Stancog has decreased its proposed application amount to 5, 5, and 2, 12. So, but yes, so if Stancog were to be successful in its 3 applications, initially estimated at 15 million, it would have only left 75 million of the competitive 90. Yes, that's how we got to those numbers.
The 15 million was for what?
Dakota to
subtract-
Gates, 5 million. The 99 132 interchange, which is also part of Sarah 132, 5 million. And then the Kansas Avenue overcrossing, which is bike ped project, we were estimating at 5 million. It's now 1.9 million. And those are the 3 projects.
I think.
Any other questions? All right, go out to the public. 6B. And none, this is informational as well, correct?
Just information.
Thank you, Jose Luis. We'll move on to agenda item 7A, local transportation funds. Any comments? Questions from the public? All right, we'll go to agenda item 8, Caltrans report. Is Caltrans on? No?
Mr. Chair, we do not have a Caltrans rep online.
Thank you. We'll go to item 9, interim executive report.
You. So my only item I wanted to bring to your attention is we are looking for a permanent executive director. There's a recruitment going on with that, hoping that we can get a new executive director in by the first of the year. So we'll continue that recruitment process. And that concludes my report.
Agenda item 10 is member reports. Any member reports? Nope. All right, we'll adjourn the meeting at 3:29. Thank you.